Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for an MP webinar covering isolved Product Spotlight MP HR. I'm Brianna Hostler, Marketing Specialist here at MP. For those of you joining us on a webinar for the first time, MP is a full-service human capital management company. We offer a complete suite of products and services to support organizations through the entire employee lifecycle, including recruiting, HR, payroll, benefits administration, time and attendance, and compliance assistance. We support our clients with cutting edge technical solutions, as well as proactive, reliable service and deep HR and payroll expertise. At MP, we are wired for HR and help our clients succeed by aligning their people strategy with their business goals. I am excited to introduce your presenter for today's program, Paul Corellis. Paul has over a decade of experience in the HR consulting space, working with businesses of all sizes and industries. Paul leads a team of SHRM-certified HR professionals at MP. Together, they assist clients with compliance, training, and HR guidance and support for the full employee lifecycle. Paul also spearheads MP's employee retention tax credit services. This initiative has helped thousands of clients claim over $100 million in refundable advanceable tax credits. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started here today. If you would like to submit a question during the program, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. We will be sending out the recording of the webinar later today along with the slides. And with that, I'm going to hand the mic off to Paul.
Great. Thank you so much, Brianna. Pleasure to speak with you today. Definitely a different angle than I'm used to. Usually we're talking about HR topics and employment law topics and HR soft skills and things like that. So today we'll look a little bit more inward and talk about the service that our HR services team does provide. So what we'll be covering today will be a little bit of history about MPHR services, some highlights of the offering, what is included in the service. We'll also kind of share some quotes and feedback from what clients have had to say historically about the services and what they find to be most valuable about it. We'll go over a few ideal client profiles, which types of businesses tend to be an especially good fit for this, as well as, some exceptions where it may not be. And then we'll go over some case studies, just a few examples of companies of different industries and different size, and how we were able to leverage the service to be of value to them. As Brianna mentioned, if you do have any questions, curiosities about the service or anything you're wanting to know, do feel free to throw those into the Q&A. We'll get to any of those that we can, or follow up individually if it's a more business-specific question. So just kind of quickly, as you saw on one of the intro slides, next year will mark 20 years in business for MP as a payroll provider. It will also mark 10 years of MPHR services. So a really awesome milestone. That's when I joined the company just about 10 years ago to kind of spearhead the effort here with HR services. And it's just been such a wonderful adventure and journey working with all of these businesses, both new to MP and old, helping them out on their respective business journey and their HR journey. So excited to be talking about this as it is my baby. So when we talk about HR services and what we offer at a high level, we really kind of focus on three pillars. So first, we'll go over what those are. The first of which is compliance. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of an HR service. If you've worked with an HR service in the past, that's a non-negotiable. You need to be able to count, rely, and trust on them to keep you up to date with compliance items. So that's really kind of the primary focus. We focus equally on the others, but first things first, when we first meet with a client, there's oftentimes a lot of things they want to do. They have a lot of goals and wants, wanting to get more strategic, wanting to put in certain pieces of infrastructure, things like that. But before we dig into the fun stuff, quote unquote, we need to make sure that the business is protected, that there aren't any unnecessary exposures, and that there aren't any liabilities out there. And if there are, that we're having an educated conversation to really understand what those exposures are and what the potential risk is. So in terms of the compliance, we look at it, on a client-by-client basis, both at the federal level We do focus primarily with U.S. employment law. We have other partners if you do have an international presence that can help with that. We keep our expertise to domestic, but we look at federal as well as state and local. So more and more you're seeing counties and cities come up with their own HR and employment laws, things like mandatory sick leaves or unique minimum wage rules or pay transparency requirements, things like that. So we are looking at it and, down to the city level. This becomes more and more important in this day and age as employers start to hire remote workers. Oftentimes those remote workers may be in different states than where they have historically had a physical presence. So one thing to keep in mind, if that happens to be you, that as you had these employees working out of other states, you are now considered an employer in that state and need to make sure that you're complying with the labor laws for the employees that are working there. So the compliance, while it isn't always the most exciting aspect of HR or the work that we do, it is very crucial, and it has been a busy, because despite the fact that federal laws keep changing and state laws keep changing, also so many businesses now, those that have the luxury of being able to hire remotely, are now realizing that they are multi-state employers when they may not have been in the past. So whether you're a one person wearing a million hats as a business owner, having to manage the day-to-day operations of the business, as well as the employees, as well as HR, and kind of not knowing what you don't know, or you may even be an HR department of one, or have an entire HR team. Either way, you can count on the MP HR team to be there to support you, to not only help you in a reactive sense as compliance questions come up, but our goal is really to be your first source of information for new laws and regulations that are coming out. So oftentimes you'll be hearing from your HR partner, sometimes even before a law is passed. So when it looks imminent, when it's passed the House of Representatives or the legislature, and is headed towards the governor or the president's desk for a signature, we're going to be out there letting you know that there's a high likelihood that something's going to pass, and we want to start on the strategy for how to be in compliance with it as soon as possible. So in addition to that, we want to make sure that all of your labor law posters are up to date. We do now have both physical options as well as electronic options, and a website link as well that you can use to stay in compliance with your labor law requirements. Again, we're providing regular communications to make sure you're up to date with not only actual changes to the laws, but as judicial bodies, whether it be the Supreme Court or a court in a state, has a ruling that might create a different interpretation of an existing law and a new best practice. We're keeping you in the loop about that as well. Assist with handbook creation and handbook updates. There have been some big changes in required handbook policies from the National Labor Relations Board over the last 6 to 8 months. So we're working a lot with updating existing handbooks. We also review and create job descriptions for a business to make sure that those are compliant and accurate. And also, again, help assess risk when it comes to an employee relation situation. So if you're thinking about disciplining or maybe even terminating an employee, we're going to walk through, kind of a liability and risk assessment there. Are there protected classes in play? Is this an ADA situation? What do we have for documentation and paperwork leading up to the termination, things like that. So someone to kind of help guide you through each step of the process. Our team of SHRM and PHR certified HR professionals, the best way to describe them are probably HR geeks, and they wear that badge with pride. They're passionate about HR. They eat, sleep, and breathe HR. They love it. They meet on a regular basis with one another to make sure they're keeping themselves up to date with all the latest and greatest. They truly care about the clients and spend many, many hours reading, attending webinars, attending seminars, keeping up their certifications, and staying on top of these things so they can then disseminate information both internally and externally to the clients that they're working with. The next pillar is really, our aim and our goal to be a true strategic partner to our clients. So, compliance does factor into that, but HR in this day and age means so much more than just hiring, firing, and staying within the labor laws. There's so much HR strategy that can be utilized. And as we've seen, as the job market has ebbed and flowed, and we had the great resignation, and the voice of the employee has just come to the forefront. And there's so much out there in terms of Glassdoor and social media where employers really need to be strategic and oftentimes need to put on their PR hat when they're talking HR. So that's something that our team really loves to do. So again, whether you're a sole prop business owner or part of an HR team at a large business of hundreds or thousands of employees, we will position ourselves appropriately with that. So that means having regular recurring meetings to talk about the goals of the business. And oftentimes those goals may not be directly HR related. It might be that, hey, we want to expand to 3 more locations in the next 3 years. Or it might be we want to end up on our city's business journal's best places to work list. Or it might be, hey, we really would like to sell the business in the next 24 months, and we need to make sure we have things in order and that we're an attractive option for someone looking to acquire a business. Whatever it may be, might be, hey, we're a startup. We've got a dozen employees now, but we're planning to be at 200 by the end of 2024. Whatever that is, that's going to require some HR strategy. So we really want to know what the goals of the business are so that we can align the HR strategy with that and make sure that the policies we're putting in place, the best practices, the HR infrastructure is in alignment with whatever those goals of the business happen to be. So some of the other things that can be that we can collaborate on, taking a look at what is your recruiting process? What's your onboarding process? How do you do new hire orientation? Is that working well for you, or could you use a refresh or maybe even a blow up? What's your compensation strategy? Do you have salary bands? Do you have a performance management system set up or performance reviews? Are you doing 9-box evaluations of your current talent? Any of those types of things, our team is ready and willing to jump into those projects with you. And then the third pillar is training and development. So again, another passion of several members of our HR services team is just providing education and helping develop our clients and their employees. So a few different aspects of that, whether it be our contact who is serving as kind of the HR person for the business. And again, sometimes people might have a great deal of HR training. They might be a recent graduate, or they might be someone who's never had to touch HR at all. We can work directly with that person to train them up. So we're always going to be there and helping them look like a rock star and providing them all the information and support that they need. But provided that they're interested in becoming a more seasoned HR professional, we can do that through our trainings and our webinars and our seminars and our workshops. Another really popular aspect of our training and development has to do with managers and supervisors. So we have a whole series of management and supervisory trainings. We have one kind of general one that's especially geared towards new managers or managers looking to kind of make sure they have all the building blocks, called Management 101. We then also have more structured managerial and supervisory trainings on topics like effective employee discipline, giving and receiving feedback, performance management, interviewing and selection, and several others. We also have preventing harassment training specifically for managers and supervisors, as well as a session specifically for the general employee population. So for the general employee population, we have some other great things. We have building a respectful and inclusive workplace. Again, we have a harassment, we have customer service, things like that. And those are done live. We can set up a Zoom depending on your makeup and your demographic. We can also oftentimes come in live for a live training session, but those are live and interactive, have activities and things like that. For businesses that prefer a kind of on-demand option, we do also have LMS available with hundreds of training topics there as well. All right, so now that we've talked about the pillars, let's kind of dive in a little bit deeper and talk about specifically what is included with our HR services. So there is virtual and telephonic HR support with a SHRM-certified HR expert. So when clients sign up for HR services, they are assigned to a specific HR partner that's going to get to know their business, get to know their culture, get to know the players and the decision makers, so that, versus calling a call center where you're talking to a different person each time and they're having to get caught up to speed on the history of your business or how you've handled things historically, this person is going to know your organization quite intimately, know the culture, know the appetite for risk, and be able to advise from a more strategic and educated perspective. So while you are assigned a specific HR person, you do still have the benefit and expertise of our entire HR services team, which is made up of HR professionals from all different industries and business sizes, several with many years of HR experience. So when there is a topic or a subject matter that your HR partner knows there's someone else on the team that has a great deal of experience with, they're going to be able to jump in and work with you and help out with that project. So for instance, just yesterday, I had a client who came across a prevailing wage scenario where they're bidding on a job. They hadn't done that in quite a few years. That's admittedly not in my wheelhouse, but I knew someone on the team who did have experience with contracts and prevailing wage, so I looped them into the conversation. We were able to get those questions answered and that problem resolved quickly. Generally speaking, as I said, compliance is that important, crucial first step. So we do begin the service in most cases, unless there's an immediate fire or need for something to be addressed. We do like to start with an HR audit and assessment, just to go over both compliance items as well as the goals of the company and what you would like to get out of the service, where we then build out a 6-month action plan to kind of get that all organized and scheduled out so we all have some things to work towards. We also offer a custom employee handbook as well as updates to that. The handbook that we use does have policies that are legally reviewed for all 50 states, and as things change and are updated, we update the book as well. We do also offer custom employee engagement surveys. So that can be a general engagement survey, for those businesses that are looking to either see, how engaged their employees are or how happy their employees are, or if they're looking to get on one of those best places to work list. Those are usually determined by a survey, so we can do something to mirror or mimic that survey, so we kind of know what's good and what we need to work on. We also offer salary benchmarking, so we can help determine the average salary ranges based on your industry, business size, and geography, based on the job titles that you have, and do some custom work around that. We also offer a variety of customized HR forms and templates. So that can be everything from an offer letter to written warnings to performance evaluation forms, specific employee communications, things like a fitness for duty report or a communication to an employee whose leave is going to be expiring and we're looking to see if they're going to be coming back, termination letters, things like that. We also assist businesses with proper employee classification, whether that's determining whether, based on job description, your employee is an exempt or non-exempt and eligible for overtime. Also, whether a worker should be classified as a W-2 employee or can be considered a 1099 independent contractor. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a few moments when we talk about some of the case studies. We also help put together those job descriptions that I just mentioned. We can provide some basic assistance on sourcing quality job candidates, give you some pointers. We do also separately have an entire recruiting services product. So I know there's going to be a product spotlight on that, I believe, next month. But if it's just a one-off position or something like that, and you need some guidance or need a review of your job postings or help creating a new job posting, that's something that our HR services team can help out with. And then for clients of ours who are also on isolved with us for payroll and human capital management, we can help make some recommendations once we get to know your business from an HR perspective about some of the features and functionalities within isolved that may be of benefit to your organization and help with efficiency and overall productivity. So, oops, that is, but I went over many of the most common seminars. We do have a catalog available, so if anyone's interested in learning specifically or looking for a specific training topic, we'd be happy to review that with you. But it's everything, again, from interviewing and selection, managing an effective workforce, generational differences in the workplace, customer service, marijuana in the workplace, responding to requests for accommodation, soup to nuts. We basically cover it. So about 12 months ago, we did some focus groups with some of our HR services clients, both to get an understanding for what we were doing well, if there were any concerns or anything that we were being blind to, as well as if there were any other offerings that businesses would benefit from. So out of that, we did more. We developed our 9-box. So for those of you unfamiliar, that's a project and a process where an organization takes a look at their talent and rates them based on their performance, as well as their abilities and how they will perform in the future as well. So that's something we started offering. We also really enhanced our employee engagement surveys, as well as our compensation services. So those are things that came out of this project. But some of the feedback that we got as we kind of polled the employees and what they seen and felt were the most valuable aspects you see on the screen here. So I'll read some of these quotes. We love that our HR partner is going to make us aware of any new laws or HR changes and also help us strategize on how to best comply. They help us with every stage of the employee life cycle. It's reassuring to know that I have someone to call when I have an HR question or emergency. One client mentioned that they saw a measurable improvement in their employee and management retention from the training series. The company really gets to know our culture and factors that into their advice for us. And then another client that has a monthly meeting with their HR partner, and they like having that on a recurring basis. So yeah, it is important to note this service is geared both as a proactive and a reactive. So we certainly help lay the groundwork and the infrastructure to have a smooth HR operation, but no matter how many precautions and things you have in place, there are always going to be those surprises and those emergencies that you didn't anticipate and you need some help with. So there is that reactive piece as well, where you can pick up the phone or shoot an email over to your HR partner who can help out in a crisis. So for those businesses that tend to be a great fit, with so much regulation now on all businesses, whether it be mandatory sick leave or the Affordable Care Act and health insurance compliance, and everything else that's popped up over the last dozen or so years, more and more businesses that used to give a blind eye to a lot of HR and compliance are now kind of forced into needing some help with that. So now more than ever, businesses tend to be a great fit, but some that are an especially good fit, definitely businesses with little or no HR background. They don't know what they don't know. They may keep them up at night, realizing that there may be things that they're unaware of or not doing the right way. So those are definitely a good fit. Also, businesses that either don't have HR infrastructure, they never got around to putting together a handbook or putting together job descriptions, or maybe they did, but it was 5 years ago or more. And they are having a difficult time devoting some time to those types of projects. Also, businesses that are growing. So as you grow an employee count, as you probably know, you become subject to more rules and regulations. 50 employees is oftentimes a magical number, where you then have to start thinking about the Affordable Care Act, Family Medical Leave Act from a federal perspective, things like that. Also, as we talked about at the beginning, businesses that grow into new states all of a sudden have a whole new set of employment laws they need to familiarize themselves with. So those are always a really great fit. And then, as I said, even organizations that have existing HR teams that really just need a new partner, they need someone from the outside, keeping them up to date, and someone that may have a strength in an area that their HR team is weak in, we can help out with. And we really position ourselves as a resource, again, someone who's going to make them look like rock stars, who's going to really help them in their day-to-day and not pose a threat to the HR professional who's in-house. Because one important thing to mention, this is an HR service where we're advisory and we're strategic, and we work with business owners and HR professionals and managers and supervisors. We don't field calls from rank and file employees if they have HR concerns or questions and things like that. So we do work. We do partner especially well with anyone who is that designate internally at the client's business. So lastly, I just wanted to go over just a few examples of some businesses that we have worked with in an abstract here to talk about some ways that we've been able to effectively position the business. So first is a landscaping company. They had 25 employees, or 25 workers, I should say, because at the time that they came to us, all of those workers were being paid and classified as independent contractors. And through our analysis, we discovered that that was incorrect. They were out of compliance and did have some exposure and liability that could have meant some pretty stiff fines and penalties for them. So we examined the situation. We confirmed what the classification should be. We created job descriptions for those roles. We then developed a reclassification strategy in terms of how we were going to move people over, what the correct compensation was going to be, factoring in that there would now be employer taxes involved. We then came up with a communication plan. How are we going to communicate this to the employees without raising any eyebrows, without creating other compliance concerns? We then held a workshop with the employees to make sure we got communicated what the plan was, what the changes were, as well as getting them to complete all of the new hire paperwork because they hadn't filled that out previously as contractors. And then this business also decided to move forward with a federal amnesty program that reduces and protects a business when they do reclassify workers and acknowledge that they had independent contractors misclassified, and we're going to move them over to W-2 employees. So this company received no fines, no penalties. It's now been several years, and things are going quite smoothly for that organization. Next is a brewery. They had 40 employees. They had really passionate owners, knew beer inside and out, but that was their expertise. HR was not, and they were smart enough to realize that and acknowledge it. So they had just kind of brought on some friends to help them on initially, but they were growing and now had 40 employees, including people that they didn't know previously. So they realized they kind of needed to get their act together when it came to HR. So for them, we developed an onboarding resources for the new hires. We put together a new hire packet and all of that. When we eventually got them on electronic onboarding through isolved. We also helped them design their tip pooling program. There is what's known as the 80-20 rule, which limits how much non-tippable work an employee can do to preserve the tip credit. So we worked with them on that and rolled that out. They also had people that they wanted to promote to managers, but wanted to make sure that they were going to be adequate managers that were an asset to the company and not a liability. So we put together a training program for those folks and got their managers and supervisors trained. And then COVID hit. Obviously, breweries were someone that were hit hard. So to help them out, we assisted them in obtaining their PPP loans as well as qualifying for the employee retention tax credit program. Next was a restaurant group. They had 60 employees, so they were growing. They were subject to the FMLA and ACA and all of that, and had someone kind of handling HR, but not someone who was designated as an HR manager. And they realized that that was something that they did really need. So what we were able to help them do was hire someone more junior level. So they definitely saved some money by hiring someone who was a recent college graduate, didn't have a ton of actual HR experience, but kind of knew the basics from their education. And we were able to, again, train them up on HR matters. And within 12 months, they were being promoted and were a huge asset to that organization. Some other things we did with that restaurant group, we helped them with the ACA compliance and filings once they became subject. We also did a company-wide harassment training as there had been some issues, as often happens with hospitality. And when there were harassment issues, we helped them and teach them how to do a proper investigation and support them through that process. Next is a tech company. They had over 100 employees. They started as a startup and grew quickly. and did not kind of grow their HR policies to match their growing employee count. So what we had to do there from a compliance perspective was make sure they were set up and well trained in how to comply with FMLA, also the Equal Employment Opportunity EEO-1 filing, as well as the Affordable Care Act. For them, we updated their handbook to make sure that their policies were correct for an employer of their size. As a tech company, they did also have employees in other states, so we added addendums for those states that they were in to make sure they were compliant there, and also get the electronic employment law posters in place for those individuals. There was also some pay equity concerns there as they grew and had to hire some people at high cost. They wanted to make sure that their pay practices were equitable, so we were able to do an audit for them as they were an isolved client. And then finally, we also did some employee engagement surveys. They were in a very competitive employee pool and wanted to make sure they were attracting good candidates and also retaining the ones that they did have. So we did an employee engagement survey. We got some great feedback. And then did a follow-up and help them put some pieces in place to increase the engagement and happiness of their workers. And then finally, a manufacturer with over 200 employees, 250 employees. They had existing HR. They had, I believe, a team of 2 or 3 folks in their HR team, but they were just overwhelmed. In their manufacturing, they did have a lot of employees from other countries, so they were at high risk of Homeland Security and I-9 audits. So we did our own internal audit of their I-9s. They did end up being audited on those, and they passed their inspection as a result of some corrections that we made before the actual government audit. They did have some exempt workers that we did find were misclassified, so we did reclassify those folks to non-exempt and work on the job description and communication plan on that, again, to make sure that there wasn't any unnecessary exposure. And we also did a survey with those folks, but more focused on the benefits, and discovered that with their wages, they were looking for a lower cost health insurance option and were okay with a higher deductible. They had a lot of younger workers who wanted to be covered, but didn't have a lot of actual use. They didn't use the plan so much. They just wanted to be covered. So we helped them and advised them on a high deductible option. And they worked with their broker for that. They also lived in an area with a lot of public transportation. So the folks were looking for a transportation benefit. So we helped them get set up with a Section 132 plan. And then they also found some things that were not of interest to the vast majority of individuals. So they were able to save some money by eliminating some unnecessary benefit options. So that is a quick but in-depth overview of the HR services product. Again, should you have any questions at all on what the service provides, or if you have a specific situation that you'd like a complimentary consultation on to see if it's something that we might be able to help with, please do reach out. But otherwise, I'll hand things back to Brianna.
Thank you so much, Paul. To learn more about MP's full service solutions for 2023 and more, please reach out to your account manager. You can also visit our website at mp-hr.com for more information. Be sure to join us for our next upcoming isolved Product Spotlight webinar, which is MP Recruiting and ATS, airing on November 29th. Visit our website to register and to see the full calendar of upcoming events and available resources, and we will be sending out a recording of today's webinar this afternoon. Thanks for joining us and have a terrific day.